This is Steve Ridgell, and I want to talk a little bit this morning about the new birth of my friend Anthony Willett. Anthony grew up with some Jesus influence, actually, primarily from his dad. And he had that influence early in life, but as he got older, as often happens, he chose to live a different way. Didn't really believe in some of the things he'd been taught. And so, as sometimes happens, he ended up with some consequences to his life choices and spent some time in prison. Well, when he went to county preparatory to being to a trial and going being incarcerated, in county he actually started getting interested in Jesus again. There were a number of worship services, and he would have interest, and he actually thought about really pursuing, kind of wanted to really pursue Jesus, but in his words, he'd get started and then it just never really took. He'd go right back to thinking and doing things he used to do. Well, eventually he ended up in prison. When he was in prison, he ran into one of our brothers from Hillcrest, Joseph. And when he met Joseph, Joseph had been really active, and as sometimes happens in all of our lives, we lose a little of our focus on Jesus. And so Joseph had a parole violation, ended up back in prison. But he says it helped him wake up for Jesus. And so he started telling people about Jesus. And Anthony's one of the guys he met. And he told Anthony, when you get out of prison, go to Hillcrest. They'll help you with your Jesus journey. And so Anthony got out and he thought about that, but didn't really act on it until Joseph got out. And Joseph looked him up, found him at his halfway house, started not just inviting him, bringing him to Hillcrest. And boy, it was exactly what Anthony was looking for. Anthony will now tell you one reason he never really stuck with his Jesus, kind of the things he wanted to do. He didn't have a church connection. He didn't have a church home. He didn't have a place to really live that and do that. And so it was difficult for him and hard for him. So when he started coming to church, boy, immediately he would hear Nathan preach and talk about the Jesus life. He'd go to our Secrets class on Sunday morning where Nathan often taught. One of our elders, Kevin, teaches there a bunch, and Kevin would talk about what it looks like to follow Jesus. He'd come to the Jesus Journey class, got really involved there, and hear me talk about what it looks like to live your Jesus life. And then he and I started meeting. We go sit at Brahms several times and just talk about what it meant to follow Jesus. He started praying, and God gave him a job, and he acknowledged that was a God thing. And then he visited some with our preacher Nathan, and long story short, Anthony decided he wanted the Jesus life for real this time. And so just a couple of Sundays ago, he stood before our church family with Nathan and I. I told a little bit of his story, and then Nathan baptized him into Jesus. And Anthony has been on fire and excited. I was really excited the day he was baptized. He had his brother come. A couple of his friends from the halfway house came. At least one of those has already expressed interest in talking about what Anthony has. It's how it's supposed to work. People that sometimes had seeds planted years ago and got off track and had some consequences. But God keeps pursuing them through guys like Joseph and Hillcrest Church. And now Anthony is my brother.